You ain't got to turn it off.
All right. Okay, you can go ahead and hit the live button. All right, so it's imperative that today that we're going to deal with on our third gatherings in the month. We decided to start making that our dealing with unity and learning how to unify as a whole. And I believe that that is extremely important to our growth, as a nation as a whole. Because it's important. That's one of the main things, A lot of times we look at, people look at who I call the covenant people. That one of the things that's known among us is division. We can't come together on that. We can't trust each other. We got all kind of issues, got all kind of problems. It's known among us with ourselves and also other people or other nations that look at us and say, oh, well, they can't trust each other. They don't love each other. Why is it that every other group of nationalities can come together based off their nationality but us? Now, if we do something based off our nationality, we are seen as that's wrong or that's not spiritual, right? But every other group moves as a nation. The Jewish people do everything based off of their nationality. One of the Jewish people was saying that they can travel from Israel, come over here to America, don't know none of the Jewish people here in America, and can come stay in their home for a week based off them being Jewish people. And they ain't even got to know each other. We can't even go to our neighbor's house for a little while. I don't know you. You know what I'm saying? But they move as a group. You see what I'm saying? The Mexicans, they move as a group. They come over here and take a little $3 an hour job and begin and stay in one little trailer and get one little car. It can be 8. But they begin to develop each other until they pay cars off, pay houses off, and begin to move together economically in unity. The Arab people, I went over there to a gas station that's by my house. Went in there, and before it was another company that owned the gas station. Then I went in there and looked, and it was a Arab guy. He was back there. I was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" It was like, "How you doing?" I said, "Y'all just moved and own that?" He was like, "Yeah." He said, "We own the store now." I said, "Dog, how long have y'all?" He said, "We have had about a month." And you know me, I'm just gonna be blunt. I was like, "Look, man, how are y'all able to come over here and just own gas stations and hotels and stuff like that, man?" He was like, "Well, man," he said, "What you mean?" I said, "Just like I said, you just came over here and just bought the gas station." I said, because I said, to be honest, man, I want to know. I want to be able to get down. He was like, "Well, man." Then he tried to switch up and say, "Well, man, I just work here." I said, "No, you just told me y'all own the gas station." He started winking at me. He was like, "Nah," he said, "I just work here." I said, "See," I said, "It's okay. You just tell me you don't want to let me in on it. Just go and let me know." You want to keep it within yourself. But they move as a group in unity. You see what I'm saying? So every other nationality just about move as a group economically and unity and different things of that nature, especially, but when it comes to us, there is a problem with us by unifying and coming together. There's so much division, whether it can be something just as small as what color we gonna wear today. Everybody fussing about it, and I'm just talking about in one household, not just the nation overall. So it's a problem with the people of the covenant. And it go back to even if the Jewish people, and I hate to keep bringing up them, but I have to bring up them to show the difference. The Jewish people, all this time, was claiming the land of Israel based off their ethnicity. They was claiming biblical promises based off their ethnicity. They was claiming all these things based off their ethnicity. Nobody ever called that a racist theology. Nobody ever said they pushing race. Nobody ever questioned it. But when we, which is the true people of the covenant, when we bring things in the right perspective, aligning with scripture, now it's called, well, that's black theology. Y'all pushing the racist. Y'all making this about color. When we didn't set up the color system in this nation, it was set up when we got here and institutionalized throughout the country. So it ain't our fault when we bring the reality of what the truth is. It's not a racist theology, it's just truth. You understand what I'm saying? So I began to look at how can we overcome the barrier of unity? Because even when people come into the truth, I was hoping and like, man, when I'm coming to the truth, I'm learning this information. I'm being led by the Spirit. The scriptures is leading me. I'm meeting a whole new avenue of different people. I was like, man, we finna unify. Then I come over here and I'm looking like, oh my God, look at all this. Everybody believe in something. Everybody divided on something. Everybody, because we ain't saying this right, then this whole division's off just basic stuff that a lot of this stuff is going to be corrected completely without a shadow of doubt when the Messiah returned and everything that the prophets prophesied happened. So you can't get dogmatic on anything where you get so ingrained with it that you be like, that ain't my brother no more. Forget that over there. I don't care about them no more. Because y'all believe something different and not being objective in your understanding. Not being dogmatic that it brings disunity. You understand what I'm saying? So I began to say, well, what is the problem? And people wonder why everything always goes back to the time of slavery. People wonder, well, why you look into slavery and why you be going back into all this stuff? Because this will teach you the problems that has been carried on to the day. Because everybody see that we as a nation of the people of the covenant, or people of color, have issues. And now everybody's talking about, let's stop the division. There's too much division in this nation. Trump is in us, so there's so much division. Let's come together. Not realizing that when has this country ever been united? Throughout the history. When have we been united as a nation? Name a time. The only time that we have been united is in war. We initially started to be united and got an opportunity to fight in the Civil War and fight in those wars because we was thinking that we was going to have our freedom. So even though we was going through slavery as a people, we had an opportunity to join and become to fight for a freedom that we weren't experiencing. But we united then, fought, and then when you got done fighting, oh, you get back over there because you still a nigga. Or when 9/11 happened, everybody united. But just as soon as, or the Vietnam War, everybody united, but when the people of color came back over here, they was ostracized. They were still made to go in the back of the bus, in the back of the hotel. Ain't no unity here. But now all of a sudden we want to talk about keeping the unity. Now I understand the perspective of what people are talking about, but you have to go back. You just can't breeze over stuff and just that's just like a woman in a relationship with her husband. Her husband cheating on her and her husband abusing her. But he want to just tell her just because she said she's finna leave and tell her, well, I'm sorry for all that and let's just get over that. And we just gonna move on. Now, why you still worried about that hurt, worried about that person? No! You have violated this person. You have to go back and begin to allow the person to heal. So this is why I say this is a pattern on how we should, if we really want healing in the nation, we have to go back and see what really happened. So what does number one step towards unity is going back and seeing the truth of what really happened. We have to go back. We have to be, number one, honest with what happened. And then we can move from that and go into, okay, I see what happened. Let's go into the repentance stage. Because if I done you wrong and I realize and I admit that I have done you wrong for centuries, And I studied and looked at that because a lot of us haven't really studied slavery and what really happened to gain an understanding of what is going on today. Because there's always a root cause to the behavior that is happening. So it's important for us to go back to, I know that some of the stuff is gloomy, but you wouldn't disregard it as much as a nation when you go back and look at what really happened, because some terrible things was going on. And one thing that'll do for us as a people, it'll begin to make you love your people to a greater level when you see what we have endured. Not just from slavery time, but all the way up until today. So it's important to go back and revisit those things. Our step towards unity as a nation. You got to go back. You got to be honest with what happened. You got to admit guilt for what happened. Then your next stage is repentance. Repentance means let's make this right. Let's go back and look at what was done and let's get this right. Then the person that got perpetrated on can start with forgiveness. Because now I have an avenue of forgiveness because you have admitted to your wrong. And you're looking to make it right. That can work on the highest level or the lowest level. I'm admitting that I was wrong. I'm not just going to say I'm sorry, but I'm going to make it right. Then you can get into that avenue of forgiveness. Then you can have the next step, which is healing. Because now I can deal with the things that has been going on in my spirit or in my heart because of the things that happened throughout the generation. And from that healing, then we can have unity. But we can't disregard everything and just say we shouldn't worry about that. That happened so many years ago. We ain't worried about nothing. But this country wealth was built on that and became a thriving nation based off of the atrocities that happened from its inception all the way up until today. We understanding that? So I began to look at, I had to go back into slavery and understand the psychology of what was implemented to understand the behavior of today. Because I want to know, why do we not trust each other? Why are we envious of each other? Why do we begin to clown each other by skin color, by hair texture, by all these other things where other nations don't do that? What is it? Why do we have such a hate and a distrust and wanting to fight each other off small things? What is going on inwardly? And as I begin to do that, and we have already went over the Willie Lynch letter, or the Willie Lynch problem, of what he instituted, the psychology behind slavery. We went over that thing, but as you go back over it, you'll begin to see what is going on today, because the things that they instituted, and this is not hate speech, this is not a hateful thing, this is dealing with truth. You'll see why problems have went out throughout the generation. And let me explain it to you like this. And I know we have all heard this. Say it was a family gathering, and a little girl seen her mother taking some, let's just say it's I say meatloaf. And what she would do, she would see her mother cut one half of the meatloaf and the front half of the meatloaf, and cut the front of it and the back of it and put it in a pot and cook it. So she looked at her and said, "Mama, why you do that?" The mama said, "Well, I seen my mama do that. Go ask her." So she went to grandmama and asked grandmama the same thing. Seen her grandmama. Her grandmama said, "Well, I don't know why I do that." "Well, go ask great grandmama. Great grandmama in the room, she'll tell you." And great grandma said, "Well, at that time, I didn't have enough money to get a big pot, so I had to work with the pot I had. So I had to cut the front and cut the bottom so it can fit in the pot." So she was like, "Oh, okay, so we have carried this on throughout our legacy and tradition based off grandma not having enough money to buy a big pot. But we have made that traditional." Now think about that when it comes to slavery. I'm taking you from your original thinking pattern to break you down to think like a slave. So I have to implement these type of things, and it would be carried on throughout your generation. So when you go back and start looking at what was the original intent, what we was believing, how did we really love each other? Because when you go into the African cultures amongst the tribes now, I'm not talking about tribe against tribe, but within the tribe, you see a love that we don't carry. You see a trust that we don't carry. You see a loyalty that we don't carry because they are binded together based off culture, which we are a far cry from. So it's important to understand and look at the things that was implemented that comes against what was originally intended for us is a curse. So if we was bounded together off love, now we're bounded together off distrust. The distrust has become a curse throughout our generation, making it a generational curse because it was opposite of the Most High original intention for us as a nation. That's making sense?
Yes, yes.
So let's look at this. So when you look at the Willie Lynch letter, let's look at some things he said. Now, we're not going to go through everything. You look at the whole thing on your own time. This is something that he said. You can just listen with your ears. He said, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I have guaranteed every one of you that if you instill or install these things correctly, it will control your slaves for 300 or even up to 1,000 years. So this is something that he's talking, it's a foolproof method. My method is simple. Any member of your family, your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves. And I've taken these differences and made them bigger. Watch what he used. I use fear, I use distrust, and I use envy for control purposes. So what are the things that is known amongst us? We fear each other. We distrust each other. And we're envious of each other. Let's just take a regular job that we are both trying to be on. Instantly, and we have a supervisor above us. Instantly, we'll pin ourselves against each other. We don't want to see that brother elevate because that means I might not elevate. So I got to go to the boss and tell my boss, this brother here don't be working on his break. Now all these other people over here ain't working, but you homing in on him. He ain't working. He ain't working. He going on break early. He doing this and that in order to make him look bad. Why? Because I fear his elevation over mine because it's hard for both of us to elevate. Where did we learn this from? So fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes is things that are, it's more now, but it's things that have been implemented to keep us from unity. So if the original intention for us was not to fear each other, because the opposite of fear is love. If the original intention was for us to love each other, they had to eradicate that with the Willie Lynch doctrine in order to get us from loving each other to start fearing each other. If the original intention was trust, I got to eradicate them trusting each other, and I got to implement distrust. If the original intention was goodwill, I want to see you prosper. We got to change that so they can start envying each other. So I'm going to give different slaves different statuses based off their skin color so they can begin to fight amongst each other and envy the positions they had while one is out in the field and one is in the house. So fear, distrust, and envy has become generational curses because it has begun to be implemented and we carry those out. And going back to, like I said, the meat analogy. Now, the slaves, as they begin to have these things implement in them, it becomes a regular personality of theirs. Where now, because this has been instituted so long from the first slave that got over here, now my personality has become distrust. My personality has become envy. And some of that has been done because of this is the only way we can survive. So I can't put my trust, the woman can't put her trust on the man no more. I got to put my trust on who? The slave master. Because that means the survival of me and my children. So who would be the slave master today? Welfare, the government. So it took the woman rationale into looking for a good, hardworking man. She had to be more conscious with her decision making, but now she don't have to worry about, well, because why? Master take care of all of her needs where she don't need a man. So I don't have to use judgment as a woman no more when I'm looking for a man because all my needs are met. So I can get somebody that doesn't work, don't have a job, all he doing is making babies. But I can have him because the only need I need met of him is my physical need. And I can begin to transfer this type of thinking to my children, where we have lineages of our people dependent upon the government or dependent upon the welfare system, never thinking how they can develop and break out of these things. Now, I'm not saying that we're the only people on it, because according to statistics, there's other nations that is on it way greater than we are. But it was never originally intended for us to be dependent upon it. So let's look at the differences. So we're looking at fear, distrust, and envy that has become down our generation all the way up until this day. And it ain't, when you want to get rid of a generational curse, it ain't just praying that it's gone. I pray that all generational curses leave me. No, that's crazy. It's not going to leave like that until you identify what it is. If I see that me and all my children have anger problems, I can't just say anger be gone. I got to go back to what Mother was saying before. I got to go and recognize, where is this anger coming from? And how has it carried on from my grandmother to her mother down to me? I got to identify what these generational things is. If my family got a generational thing that's been passed down of envy and control, I got to see where that's stemming from. And got to say, this is what a book going to stop. It's not going to be carried on throughout my children, because I have identified it. When I identify it, then I can eradicate it from my lineage. So that's why it's important just not to be just skimming over things. You have to understand who you are, not who you want to be. Because we all want to be better. But the reality is, we ain't there. So I got to identify, okay, if I come up from a home of fathers not being there, or not being involved in their children's life, and I know what that hurt, and I know what that pain is. Why would I want to try to sleep with every woman that I can see and drop seed in every woman that I can see and leave children with that same hurt and pain that this person that didn't have a father in their life grew up with? Why would I want to carry that on? Now, how does that go back to slavery? When you start looking at what is called sex forms, where they would breed male slaves and female slaves. They would start the female slave off when her menstrual cycle would start at the age of 12 and 13, and begin to sometimes breed with a grown man, and their only job was to produce children. So they began to be recognized with sex without having a relationship. So if I have droves of men and droves of women, and these young girls sleeping with men, and these men just sleeping with all these young girls in order to make babies, how is that carried out throughout their lineage? It's instilled that we can have sex with no relationship, with no love, because it has been indoctrinated in them as the slave breeders, as male, and it has came down to their children by continuously sleeping with multiple women without the value of love, without the value of marriage being implemented, because it was instilled from that time all the way up until the day. And it ain't until we begin to recognize, and this is why when you look at some mothers, when they look at their child, say, you're going to be just like your dad. He was a Rolling Stone, and they end up being a Rolling Stone. because that Rolling Stone mentality has came from slavery all the way up to the day. Generational. That's causing more disunity among the people. That's making sense.
Yes.
So that's why it's important to begin to realize, okay, now I'm not taking away personal responsibility, because some stuff we can identify and just be like, it's our own fault, because some stuff we just want to just keep doing. But you have to always go back to the original and begin to find out why these things, how did this stuff get implemented? This is why we have certain gifts. I know it's somebody in my lineage that was musical, because some stuff, it just comes natural to me that I can just play. I know it's somebody in my lineage that was a teacher. You understand what I'm saying? So these things are passed down in a good way, and they can be passed down as a generational curse or a generational blessing. That's making sense. So let's look at what was instituted. And we're just going to do a smaller portion of it. It says to take these differences and make them bigger. Use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. Take the simple list of differences and think about them. Let's take intelligence. Let's take size. Let's take sex. Let's take size of the plantation. Let's take the old black man against the young black man. We're still seeing that up to today. Let's take the dark-skinned slave versus the light-skinned slave. That we are one of the only people that get on each other's skin color. Oh, you blacker than black. All these crazy stuff. Well, we began to set differences amongst ourselves because of what was instituted. I began to destroy people based off their skin color. Because the lighter you are, the better you are, and the darker you are, the dumber you are. That was instituted from slavery time on up. Let's take the fine hair against the coarse hair. Oh, your hair nappy. You got old nappy, raunchy looking hair. Oh, you got good hair. You must have some Europeanism in you, or got some Indian in you. Which we don't study and see who was the original Indians here. So we got to get all that out the community. We can't be allowing our children, because let you know it's generational. That never stopped. We have children that do that. Now you didn't see them over there in the land of Ham, or the African continent, where they picking on each other about their skin color because everybody looked the same. You might have different features, different there, but they weren't clowning each other. You don't see them worried about trying to get everything straight. They have to be just as cold as it needs to be. Now it's spiritualism to that, and we ain't gonna get in that today, because every aspect of us is spiritual. But we can't take what was implemented in this nation and begin to make ourselves feel bad about our features. The house slave versus the field slave. The old black male versus the young black male. Status on plantation. We still fight off status today. Thinking if I got the big house, if I got the big car, I'm above them. Them over there in South Augusta versus them over there in Martinez and West Augusta. And you actually begin to look down on them people. On them. Thinking my status is better because I lived over here on the good side of town. Or y'all over there, y'all just criminals or nothing over there because y'all live on this side of town. The same thing that was implemented back then is still causing disunity today. Attitude of owners, whether the slave lived in the valley, the hill, the east, the west, the north, the south. How would that be implemented today? The slaves they make a division of north, east, south, neighborhood. Who does that today? Rappers. We still claiming east side, west side, south, north side, Brown Road, Apple Valley, and fighting each other based off of where I live. Now, back in slavery time, you had different fighters that would fight from the north, from the south, and then they would have to fight almost to their death because they was promised different things that would be better for them in slavery at that time. So sometimes they would put them all into one ring and blindfold them all. And this is where your Royal Rumble came from. You know how WWF or WWE talking about the Royal Rumble? It originally came from slavery time where they would put black slaves in one ring, blindfold them, and have them fight to the death. Or they would be killed if they didn't win. And this is where you get your Royal Rumble from. And the same thing that's going on now, we fight each other based off the Bloods and the Crips based off color. All this stuff was implemented back then, but you see the spirit of it that has been traveling throughout the generations, and we still carrying out these things now that wasn't the original paradigm for us. And there's no way that me as a person, it'll be insane, and I'm switching modes, for me to try to fix the world and my home to it. It'll be crazy for me to try to fix everybody else and my house is in array. I got to deal with my home first. And as I establish a model in my home, then I can help other people. Now watch this while I'm saying this. My priority, and I'm saying this, if you don't understand it out there in the world, it don't matter. My priority, because of the problems that we have and because of who we are in the scriptures, is to fix us. Now, am I saying that I won't help nobody else? I will help anybody that I can. But my focus and energy is on my people first. Because we are tore up. So if I can't straighten home out, everybody else see it too. Everybody talking about it. Everybody else say we're a problem. But when we try to home in on it, they say, well, that ain't God. Or you ain't serving the Most High. Or you bringing a difference between the Jew and the Greek. When everybody else see the problems that we have. So it's important to focus on these things. And this is why Paul said that the gospel is the power of salvation unto us that believe. But watch what he said. It's to who? The Israelite or the Jew first, then to who? The Gentile. This is what the man said. He said, I wish above all that who might be saved? Israel. So they see where their focus was at. Even though he did have ministry to Gentiles, but they had a focus in their ministry. And it was important, well, I don't want to go into all that, but it was important when you see what the Messiah said and what he brought to his people, or you see what the Torah said as a whole. So let's keep moving. So we see that all these things that have been carried out then is bringing this unity among us that we have to begin to look at. This has become a curse. Because the original intention was in the scriptures. It has our culture, our original culture, has everything. And this is why they didn't want us to read this. And this is why slave master would look at this and tell us we couldn't read and taking certain scriptures out of context and just try to make slavery okay. So when we wake up, we'll look back at that and say, yeah, this is the white man's book. Not realizing that this is all about you. And the most detailed records of your history. According to archaeological works, according to prophecy, according to everything. So this is why this is important to go back to the original intention of the type of love we're supposed to have for each other. Rather than what was implemented during slavery times that became a generational curse because it wasn't the original intention. So anything that's not the original intention of what the Most High implemented becomes a curse. And if that curse is carried out, it becomes what? A generational curse. That has become a part of our being that we live and teach to our children that they act out. And we think it's just us. No, this was what was instilled that have become a part of you. That you have taught, not just by your words, but by your actions to your children. And became a generational what? Curse. This making sense?
Yes, Lord.
All right. It says, your black says after receiving this indoctrination, watch what he says. Now, a lot of people say, that there's no real history of a guy named Willie Lynch. Okay, let's throw the guy out. Is what was implemented, can we see it happening? It ain't got to be from a person. This was a systematic, indoctrinated system that has been carried out. So we can see if it's not from one person, we know it happened because we can see it all the way up until today, which he said in the article that this would happen and this will be self-refueling, envy, distrust, differences that would keep this unity amongst who? Not everybody in the world, just people right here. But he said, if indoctrinated, this shall be carried on and will become self-refueling and self-generating. What is he saying by that? Self-refueling and self-generating. What does he mean? No answer is the wrong answer. Perpetual throughout the generations. Showing that they would act this out. We wouldn't be needed to enforce it no more. It'll be so much in them that they'll begin to act these things out themselves and teach it to their children. It said to be self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Was he talking? Right. Did it happen? So this is what we're fighting. So this is why it's important not to be so quick to hang on to the stereotypes that is out there. Not to hang on to what Hollywood puts out there. That most of our movies is about us cheating on each other, us fighting each other, us gang bang. Most of our movies is based off that. One of the only real TV shows that really showed us and the way we're supposed to be was the Cosby. But we see how they did him. So they want it seen that these people, and then you got your music industry, you got all them where we calling each other niggas and fighting each other, saying shoot this dude, and the women calling each other hoes and thoughts and all this type of crazy stuff that is happening that our children is learning. This is why it's important to understand the importance of studying history so you can teach your children the right thing. Okay. So it's important for us not to look at each other in a stereotypical way, but to look at each other as brothers and sisters that have just been, the wrong things have been instilled in us to keep us from unifying. We understand that? All right. So now let's go to different keys that we can use to help us unify. Let's go to Matthew 22 and 36. Matthew 22 and 36. We're going to do a little scripture chasing here. Matthew 22 and 36. And then the next thing we're going to is Leviticus 19. Because we got to go back to the scriptures and get the original intention of how we're supposed to love each other. So Matthew 22, and I believe that's the 36th verse. And it reads, it says, Master, which is the greater of the commandment in the law? And it says, which is the great commandment? Yeah, which is the great commandment? It's a question being here. Okay, I got to throw it off. Which is the great commandment? So they're asking him, what is the great commandment? Let's see how Yehoshua will answer them. It said, thou shalt love the Lord God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great of this commandment. This is what he's saying. So he's saying, love the Most High with all thy heart, thy soul, thy mind. This is the first of the great commandment. How can we do that? What does it mean to love the Most High? Is it just saying, Lord, Most High, I just love you. I just honor you.
With the way you live.
With the way you vote. How? How can you live it out? Where's the instructions?
By the things that he said in the Torah.
You have to go back to the Torah all the way up and see how we're supposed to do. What is the things that he implemented as love relationship with him? All right. And it says, this is the first greater the commandment. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Now let's go to Leviticus 19 and let's see where the Messiah was getting this from. Because remember, he said, I don't speak my own words. I speak the words of the Father. So let's go to Leviticus 19. And let's see here. Leviticus 19. If somebody have it, you can go ahead and read 19 and 16.
Thou shalt not go up and down as a table bearer among thy people. Neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor. I am the Lord.
All right, so when it's talking about that thy neighbor, who is he talking to?
Your brother.
Among who? Because who was out there in the wilderness with Israel? Nobody. It was just the Israelites. And some of them, the strangers that came with him. But he was talking as neighbors. He was talking amongst the community, right? Because they didn't have the Assyrians with them. They ain't had the Babylonians with them. They ain't have, all these other people with them. It was just Israelites out there and some strangers that was in them. But their neighbor was their people. So keep going. Verse 17.
Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against thy children of thy people.
Now it's saying thou shalt not avenge or bear a grudge against the children of our people. Now we're going to go back to the Messiah and see where he got the stuff from by not avenging, by turning the other cheek. Because he's explaining how to love your neighbor as yourself through what he implemented. Well, not what he implemented, but what he carried on. Because he gave the full intention of the full purpose of the law. He never eradicated it, but he gave you its full meaning. He explained it.
Right.
So we see here it said, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against thy children of thy people, but thou shalt do what?
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Now, people don't go back to where it was originally stated at. They talk like the Messiah made this up himself. But he's pulling from where? The Torah.
Right.
Let's go back. Now, let's go back to Matthew 22 and 37 again, and I read it. Jesus says, thou shalt love the Lord, thy God, to love the Most High with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first of the great commandment. And the second is, thou shalt love thy neighbor. So have the neighbor changed right here. Who he originally said he came to, and who was he talking to when the Messiah came? He was talking to who? Israel. So he was trying to teach them love amongst themselves first. Then they can carry out love as being a light to the nations. But you can't carry out love being a light to the nations if you ain't got love within your own house. Because a nation divided against itself cannot what? Stand. So let's go to Matthew chapter 5. Because he says, love your neighbor as yourself. But how do you do that? And he begins to explain it. So this is how we got to think about each other as brothers and sisters. Matthew 5 and 38. Watch what it says. You have heard that it have been said to you, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now, a lot of people get caught up right here, but if you keep reading, you'll see what he's saying. Because people try to say, look, he doing away with what was established. Just watch. Remember, he's bringing the full intention or the full purpose of the law. So it says, ye have heard that it have been said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for the tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn and give him the other. So when I first heard that, I said, man, ain't nobody finna be slapping my cheeks. No, sir. But what did he put this emphasis on? Retaliation amongst the community. Don't be so quick to time somebody do something against you, and I thought, oh, you did something to me, I'm coming back at you. Because that's going to be self-refueling disunity until somebody wake up and say, I got to be the bigger person. Is this offense? Because it said offense is going to come. Right. Is this offense that serious that will make me want to go kill him, make me want to wish harm on him, want to make me stop loving him overall? So what is he saying? If somebody smite you on the cheek, now he's not talking about going somewhere and letting people just get to slapping you. No. But what he's saying amongst the community, don't be so quick to retaliate. Because the end goal has to be unity. Now we're going to go to some other scriptures and show you how to handle stuff, because if the person ain't repentant and don't want to admit to the thing that they did and don't care, then of course you can't keep fellowship with that. Because everybody ain't going to be able to unify. You understand that? And we got to understand that. So it says, but turn the other cheek. And if any man will sue thee at the law, take away thy cloak, let him have the cloak. If somebody have done you wrong and you see that it will completely cause disruption, and we're going to show you how you're supposed to handle it. He said, if somebody sue you, don't be so quick to want to just bust their head and just want to destroy them overall. But sometimes look at the bigger picture. Try to be peaceful but with all men if it's possible. If it ain't possible, then you have to do what you have to do. But your first mind can't be, I finna bust their head, or I finna go sue them for everything. That can't be your first mind. Retaliation has to come from the Most High. He's going to be the one that avenges. And we was talking the same thing in Leviticus 19. Avenge not against your brother. And if any man, verse 41, whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile with him, go 2 miles with him. Don't just go 1 mile. Oh, man, I'm just finna go. This brother here want me to come over their house and talk. Oh. But you never know what you can be doing to them in a sense of lifting up their spirit, where you spent the time to go and be peaceful with them, have a good time with them, talk with them, give them a little bit of your time. You see what I'm saying? So you're supposed to do all these things before you make a decision that, okay, I can't deal with this person no more. Because retaliation cannot come off your first mind. So we see how the Messiah came in. He wasn't trying to bring revelation in some senses, but he was trying to show them, Israel, how to love each other. Let's keep going. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that will borrow of thee, turn not away. You have heard that it have been saying that thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you. Now that sounds like a hard saying, like, He ain't finna have me looking like no punk. I ain't got time. Let's keep reading. Verse 45, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. Why would he say that? If he said, love your enemies, and remember who your neighbor was, who he was talking in the community first. He said, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be the children of your Father. Why did he connect it like that? It's a reason. He said, if you want to be children of your Father, love your enemies. What was he saying? Do as the Father do.
Yeah, I get it. Some godly love.
Because the Father blesses his enemies. It's people that hate the Most High, but he still give them their life, their health, their strength. He allow them to wake up every day. He still give them blessings with good jobs, even though they hate him. He said, be as your Father. Now, we know that it has to be in context. Because when the Messiah come back, he ain't going to be giving no love to them like enemies like that. He going to be killing them. But when you look at within Israel, even if you have an enemy that you perceive as an enemy, because if they ain't trying to slaughter you, kill you, like Saul was trying to do them, David, you can't really call him an enemy. But you see how David handled Saul. He was an enemy, but he still blessed them. And that's the type of love we should have, where in the community first, and then take it out among the nations. But when it, times of war, now David, when you look at how David dealt with Saul, because Saul was in the community. But you see how he dealt with the nations that came up against the Most High. He killed them. You see the wisdom in that? So when the Messiah returns, he's going to destroy all these nations that's against his father. But what is they doing now? He's still blessing those that persecute him. So this is why he said, love your enemies, bless them that curse you. How many people out there curse the Most High? And they still get blessings from him. Do good to them that hate you. It got many people out there that hate the Most High and the Messiah, but he still do what? He do good to them. Pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute, and this verse 45 is key, that you may be children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh the sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. For if you love them that love you, what reward have you? Do not the publicans do the same thing? And if you salute your brother in honor, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans do the same? Be you therefore what? Perfect, even as your Father which in heaven is perfect. So this is how you live out perfection. The whole thing I'm getting out of this is that I'm not going to try to retaliate so fast upon my brothers, or retaliate upon my brothers, or put bitterness or unforgiveness on my brothers, because in the end, that's going to hurt me. That's going to destroy me. You see what I'm saying? So the way to overcome distrust with each other is to begin to love each other and realize what has been implemented from slavery time on up, and have what? Compassion for your brother. Because this is not them in their original state the way they're acting now. So this will keep us praying for the nation and keeping us loving each other. You understand what I'm saying? This making sense? All right. Now let's see a few more scriptures. Let's see Matthew 18 and 15 through 17. Matthew 18. And we got one more scripture after that, and we're going to be done. This helping us?
Yeah.
Matthew 18, verse 15 through 17. Let me turn this fan on. Get a little warm. Get a little warm up there. Now let's go. Matthew 18. Now we're going to show you how to deal when you have a conflict. Now it's important to see, because the Bible does give you guidelines to mark them that cause division among you. That when people don't go down this structure in Matthew 18, that you got some people you have to disassociate from. Some people that you have to do some exposure on because of their attitude. You understand what I'm saying? So let's look at Matthew 18, 15 through 17. And it reads, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go tell him his fault between thee and him alone. And if he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. So if you have an offense with somebody offended you, even your wife or your husband offended you, it didn't say go out and get with all your homegirls and tell them about what happened before you even talk to your husband, giving them a bad skew of your husband. If your wife offended you, it ain't say go and talk to everybody else about what happened before you talk to amongst yourselves. It said, moreover, if thy brother trespass against thee, go tell them his fault between thee and who? Him alone. And it said, if thy brother will hear you, thou hast gained thy brother. So the first step, the reconciliation in a matter, is to try to get it straight amongst each other first. Right? So the next step. But if he will not hear thee, then take thee one or two or more of thy brother, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word will be established. Okay, if he ain't hear you then you take some brother that both of y'all got confidence in. That both of y'all got confidence in, that you can talk this thing out, because sometimes it might take that. Everything all right? Stop. But just see, can you go back and hit live again? So that's why that is important. And then the next step is, and if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the assembly. But if he neglect to hear the assembly, let him be unto thee as what? A heathen.
It's still recording. You just spoke on that.
Okay.
You keep going.
Okay, so it give you the first. What's your first step? Your first step is to who? To go to the brother or the sister or your husband or wife, whoever it is, one-on-one. To try to talk this thing out. The next thing is if he won't hear you then you take a brother or sister that both of y'all got confidence. Don't get your best friend that's going to be on your side to deal with this matter. No, and this is why it's important to have a congregation and have counsel and have people that you can go to that you respect that can give you the right vision on the matter. And it said the next thing you do, you take them, and then if they don't hear you, then you bring it before the elders, you bring it before the congregation or the assembly. And if they an assembly, it might not mean the whole body. It might just mean the council of the elders or the council of your pastors or the council of the older people that all y'all trust. If they won't hear that matter, then what did it say? It say reject them then. Consider them as what? A heathen. So it's guidelines and boundaries. So what do I say if I'm having a problem? Because sometimes we don't know how to communicate. And I might go to my brother like, look, man, what you did aggravated me and I can't stand you about that. If you come to somebody like that, you think they're going to hear you? No. So this is a method that I learned from a book that I was reading called Confronting Without Offending. Get that book. It will help you out with communication. And it says use a method that calls bread, meat, bread. Bread, meat, bread. Bread is you give them an accolation or a praise. Then you get to the meat of the matter of what concerns you. And then you end it off with a praise or accolation. So how would I do that? If there's a problem with my brother and I want to talk to him about it. It's like, okay, brother Roscoe. Brother, I said, one the good thing about you, man, I love the different things, that the value that you brought to my life, man. I mean, our relationship, our friendship just been, wonderful. And some of the things that I have learned from you, some of the things you have learned from me, I appreciate these type of things. But look, I got an issue or something that bothered me that I want to talk to you about. And I want you to hear my heart when I'm saying this, because I'm not trying to come out of any malice or anything, but I want you to hear my heart, because overall, I want the love and the unity amongst us to stay together. So I really want you to hear me. Now, what are you doing when you're setting it up like that? They can't get defensive or offensive, but I'm setting them up to really hear what I'm trying to say. Right. And it's all about your presentation to see if you will gain your brother or not. So I set that up with the bread. Now we get into the meat. I'm going to tell you what happened. It can be anything. You came over and took too much of my chicken when my wife cooked it, and that bothered me, man. I ain't have enough chicken, for my whole household. So, I want you to be careful, just think about those things when you come over. So none won't come against us. You can't take the whole pan of chicken with you. You ate 4 pieces when you came over. Then, you took some with you. So that was my problem. I want you to think about that. Then you end it with a praise. I love you and still love having you come over, you and your family. It's a George thing, but sometimes we ain't in the best financial spot that I want to be in. But I do enjoy your company and do love how our kids interact with each other. So I love you, but I just wanted that to be on your mind. You see how when you think bread, meat, bread, you break up the rejection of what you're trying to say. And one of the greatest things you can say is telling people, look, I want you to hear my heartbeat on this. You ain't being no punk or all that type of stuff, but you're really thinking about unity in the end. Now, the person that's listening, this is what you got to do. Sometimes you have to, like the scripture say, you have to be careful how you hear. Because we hear with an ear of defense or hear with an ear of offense. And you got to know that's working. Because what this person is saying to us, either we're going to get in defensive about it. Oh, well, no. I'm this, and I'm that. I wasn't trying to do it like that. We get very defensive before we heard out the whole matter or understood it. Or we get an offensive way about it where you get mad instantly instead of really trying to hear them out. You have to shut those things down so I can really understand you. And this is something that I learned over the years from another book that I was reading. It says, seek to understand before being understood. Let's say that again. Seek to understand before being understood. What is that saying? I'm going to focus all my energy on really hearing you out and trying to understand what you are saying. I'm not going to try to justify myself, defend myself, or anything like that before I hear the whole matter of what you're saying. And what's the biblical principle of that? Is get the beam out your eye before you try to get the mote out another person's eye that you may see clearly now. So now, before I'm coming at you or being defensive or offensive about something, I'm looking at all my shortcomings first, because I didn't experience some things that I struggle with. So I'm not going to judge you in that matter. You see what I'm saying? But I'm going to hear you all the way out. So I'm going to hear with an ear of unconditional love, and I'm going to submit to you about this problem that's going on. Because my overall goal is to keep unity with you. So I'm not going to be so quick to defend myself or get offensive about what you're saying. I'm calming my spirit down and listening to you and really trying to hear you. And you have to do this with people that you love, because in the end, you want to keep unity. So seek to fully understand what this person is saying or what they're trying to convey before you give an emotional response. That can put a dagger in the relationship. Because anytime you act off of what Mother was bringing up before, anytime you act off emotions, your rationale is not included in that. So you really have to be a person of peace, a person of understanding, using the bread meet bread method, hearing with the right ear, getting self-preservation out the way where I'm trying to defend myself or getting offended by what you're saying before I even heard the whole matter or hear your heart out. And sometimes my response can't be in that moment. Sometimes I got to say, well, look, I really understand what you're saying. I'm trying to understand what you're saying, especially in a relationship with husband and wife. Maybe it might take me a little while. I got to pray on that, because I might have not seen that in a relationship. But if you see it, I know you love me, and I know you saying this for a reason. So let me go pray on that so the Most High can show me where I've been missing in it. And then we can come back and talk about it. Because the overall thing is what? Unity in a relationship. So I know my wife or my husband is not trying to control me. So I'm going to listen with an ear of unconditional love, or with an ear of submissiveness to hear what you're saying. Because the overall goal is what? Unity. That make sense?
Yes.
So this is why, as a nation, now you have some instances, like it says in Romans 16, you mark those that cause division among you and avoid them. Some people that you done tried to work all these methods with, and if it don't work, then you have to avoid them, or you have to do this. Now, I'm not saying that you can avoid your wife or avoid your husband. You got to work some out. But as a nation as a whole, we have to learn how to love each other and see each other as my brother and our sister, and begin to identify the generational things that has caused division among us, or caused division among our family for generations. Identify those and eradicate those, and then learn how to confront each other without offending each other. I went through the proper steps. I tried to come to you one-on-one. Then I bought some people of wisdom with me, that I can have 2 or 3 witnesses that every matter be established, and you still ain't want to repent from that. And then I bought it before a council, and you still see no wrong with it. Now I can't deal with you in that matter no more, because I done went through every step and show unconditional love in it. That making sense? So these are the principles that we have to use concerning unity in the spirit and unity amongst the nation as a whole. And we'll be able to move as a unit. You see what I'm saying? With these principles. So this is why we take out some time and teach these principles, what we will continuously do in order to keep unity among ourselves. Because there's going to be times where we might offend each other. That we got to know what's happening, how to gather our emotions, how to gather our thoughts, and how to sit down and have an objective conversation without totally eradicating the relationship. That makes sense? All right, you can cut that off now. All right, so if anybody have any concerns or things they want to add to it, or they can say it. Or if you find something that's important to our unity and want to bring it, I definitely give you space to teach on it or however. You see what I'm saying? But anything anybody want to add with that, with what the lesson was today? All right, we'll do it like this. I want everybody to say something.
What are we speaking of?
Upon the lesson or unity as a whole. Did we find it helpful?
Yes.
Okay. Just give me a little feedback. We'll start with Brother Tavares. And Sister Pumpkin.
Well,
a little bit she was able to hear.
Yeah, I already told us that message before.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know what you mean by the two hearings.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be that way. Before I hear you out, I be ready to let them.
Yeah.
When you done talking, I was waiting for you to shut up so I can go in.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you mean. So that method does work.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful.
That's right. And Mother?
Like you said, it's a perpetual thing among us, the jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they also, they plant people
Mm-hmm.
to stir things
Exactly.
up and keep the disunion together.
Exactly. I totally believe that. You said throughout the history that they always been playing any good social thing we try to build and build up. They plant people, then they demonize it. So everybody look at the Black Panthers and the negative connotation. Everybody look at the Bloods and the Crips and the negative connotation. But you look at the history of how those things started and what their original intention was.
Yeah,
it was a beautiful thing.
I looked into that.
But they put people in it to destroy it from the ground up. That's important. All right, Kimmy.